Worldwide markets this week. MPC goes rogue on inflation, or does it? Trump fires the head of the Bureau Labor Statistics because he doesn't like the data. Purple Group is absolutely rocking it. Which MPs own crypto? Anglo Gold Ashanti Goldfields results and updates. July vehicle sales. I'm Simon Brown. This is Worldwide Markets, episode 642 for 5 August, recorded Tuesday afternoon. Worldwide Markets, powered by Standard Bank Global Markets, Retail, and Shyft, the global money app that puts travel, shopping, payments, and investments in the palm of your hand. Enjoy the cheapest forex rates anytime, anywhere. Shyft, powered by Standard Bank. Thanks to Standard Bank, thanks to Shyft for sponsoring. And let's kick off with Purple, because Purple Group, I hold the share, have done for some time. And I want to actually go to the live price first. It's absolutely being wild. I mean, if we go back to, what was it? Let's go back to those April lows. It was down around 90 cents. It's now trading $1.97. If we zoom out on that, we can see that it was getting stuck at 80 cents just a year ago, August of last year. And we're seeing some decent volume coming through, and that perhaps is the key point. I know of one AMC that actually holds it, actively managed a certificate. We did a series with them back in May, June, around the different AMCs from Standard Bank. And if you've got someone like that holding it, that's certainly putting some buying through. But we had a day back in June, 3 million. Last week, we saw the one day trading 2 million. That's volume, not rand. 1.7 million on Friday. These are not massive numbers in the stock market, but for a little stock like Purple to be doing 1 million or 2 or 3 or 4 a day is absolutely significant. And I think there's couple of things here. Firstly, is obviously we're volatile markets, but also rising markets, crypto, all-time highs. This sucks people in. Also, South African consumers are a little better off than they have been. To be clear, we're not, well off, put it that way, but we're certainly, I think, feeling a little better off than we have been in a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Heck, we could probably go back to the pandemic. There is certainly sellers, and there have been a fair chunk of sellers, but then the buyers just arrive and are quite happy to jump at it. To be clear, this is not a cheap stock. Price earnings historic is 56 times. Interestingly, price to book only 4.2, but it's not cheap. We have seen issuances of shares up some 50% in the last decade. T's and C's there. They had a Benong Mahali loan, which they converted from debt to equity, staff, etc. I like it because I think that I think they're a great business. They're expanding what they offer. Although at this point, the average client is holding less than 2 of their products. They need to push that number. And I think some of the products aren't necessarily going to do very well. But try, innovate. Why not? Let's see what happens. PE of 56 means in an ideal world, we want earnings to grow around 50% to give us a peg of around 1. And I think that's absolutely possible. So look, it's now almost $2. Would I be buying it at 2? No. I bought at 50 cents, sold some over 3, and then bought again back at 50 cents, and I'm holding again for now. And liking it, absolutely liking it. It is doing great in that regard. But let's go to the bun fight that has started between the MPC, I suppose, were the ones who started it. Last week, we had ourselves a rates announcement, a 0.25% drop from a local overdraft rate. Very nice. We'll all absolutely take that. But what really mattered in that announcement was that the governor said that they were going to be anchoring inflation at the 3% level. Now, couple of things here. Firstly, they've been anchoring inflation at the 4.5% level since July of 2017, and no one seemed to complain about that. He also made the point that prior to that, the target of CPI, the range was 3 to 6, but really the target effectively was 5.99. 2017, 8 years ago, they said we're going to anchor at that 4.5. And I've spoken about it. Many have. The governor never refers to the range. He refers to the 4.5. He then said at that MPC meeting last week, we are now going to anchor at 3%. And that got a fiery press announcement from the minister, who was saying, hang on a second, I wasn't going to make any changes in the midterm budget policy statement, which means that the announcement was going to be in the budget next year, because the question was it going to be October or in February budget? Well, we now know it will be the February budget. And he got a little upset, where he seems to think that the MPC and the governor has usurped their authority. And that is not the case, not at all. The target is 3 to 6. The MPC and the Reserve Bank are quite within their mandate to pick a point within that target and anchor. To note, he didn't say they're targeting 3%. He said they are anchoring at 3%. And it's very important that we remember that a lot of inflation is around expectations. If the target is 6% and you're coming up for a salary increase, you're going to say, give me 8 or 9 or 10 as your first offer, right? You might settle on 7, 6 or 5, but your first offer is going to be well above the anchored number, the expectation, the 6%. If we're now anchoring at 3 and we expect inflation to be 3 going forward, because our SARB has a fairly good record of managing that, well, then your first request at the salary increase is going to be, 5? Maybe 5.5 or 6, and then you settle for 3.5, 3, 2.5. It's an important part of that process. There is a flip side to it. And there was a good article in News 24, which I saw on Tuesday morning, which says quite simply, sure, but low inflation is nice, but not if you don't have a job. And with the current high prime rate at 10.5% and a zero growth economy, well, a 1% growth economy, but with a population growth of 1.5, a negative per capita GDP growth, we find ourselves in a situation where we have this incredibly high real interest rate. And the challenge here is that is hindering growth. If we instead were leaving our anchoring at 4.5%, we could really be cutting prime. We could have our prime rate down in the 8s or 9s by now. And that extra 1-2% lower prime would be fundamentally different to our economy. It would help growth, it would help employment, and therefore inflation would matter. A 3% inflation target is lovely if you have a job. Unfortunately, it might be restrictive to you getting a job. So that's the flip side of the argument. Right now, we are essentially at 3%. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with the governor or the minister, we are effectively now anchoring at 3%, and our interest rate adjustments will be accordingly. Our interest rate is far too high for a 3%, but the risk is we are exactly at 3%. So if we move to 3.5%, technically rates need to move higher, and that will be very, very messy. We had July vehicle sales update on Friday, and they were surprisingly strong. In fact, way more than just surprisingly strong. They were a massive number, which I think caught everyone by surprise, perhaps even the industry. What we saw was a number of plus 50,000, and we haven't seen a number at that level since it just creeped there in October 2019, again in October 2018, and then October 2017. Seems to be sort of once a year. There's another one there, which was Jan 2017, but we are back above 50. In fact, we're back above 51,000. A lot of sales in the light commercial, which is interesting because our economy, you would say, where's that coming from? A lot of it, Mahindra, for example, sneaks in at number 10. We're seeing that move towards cheaper. I spoke about it last week. So certainly we are seeing cheaper vehicles. But this is a significant move and not by any stretch to be dismissed. I own CMH. And am a happy shareholder of CMH at this point. Stock hasn't been doing a heck of a lot, but it is on a single digit PE of 7.7, dividend yield of around 9%. It is cheap. The other one is Motus. We've also, of course, got We Buy Cars. They're in the second-hand space, so they're a little bit different in that regard. And then there's also Supergroup. We've got some UK and local operations. Motus is a lower PE, 6.5, dividend yield of 5.7. I still prefer the CMH operation. I hold it. That is my preferred in that space. But it was, as I said, a big number and truthfully a surprising number, I think, in many senses. But let's stay with some of the local stuff happening on the JSE. AngloGold Ashanti results were out on Friday, and we shouldn't be surprised. It was kind of knocking it out the park, but you fully expect that to happen because, well, gold is plus 3,000. I talked around this a bunch this year. We did a podcast earlier in the year. Could gold get to 4,500? And I said, even if it just stays where it is, we're going to see massive increases in profitability from our gold miners. The results to December had a gold price of around 2,200. The first 6 months of this year have got a gold price of probably north of 3,000. So production for AngloGold Ashanti up 21%. They've got Egypt in that, so that skews it a bit, so let's ignore that. All-in sustained cost continues to remain flat in real terms. Free cash flow 149% up, adjusted net debt down 92%, and a dividend of 80 cents per share. That is a quarterly dividend, which is about 14 odd rand. And the stock, Nick Kunza on my show on Monday morning said, man, this thing is going to tag 1,000. Well, it's already done 972.85 today. So yeah, I think 1,000 is absolutely on the cards. Goldfields had a trading update yesterday for the 6 months. And they also looking earnings per share to be in the range of 109 to 121, which is 150 to 181% higher than the first half of 2024. We're going to continue to see these giant numbers coming through. Expect a lot more of it. And it is, gold in of itself is not doing a heck of a lot. Well, look, it's up around the, 14-ish hundred, but it is trading in that, let's call it 3,450 with the lower end of the range around 3,200, good support around 3,000. It's pretty much been trading in that range now since April. It jumped there on the tariffs and it has been range bound. And if we look at the currency, which gives us a sense of the rand gold price, we can see that trading 1804 as I'm recording. It's been down at the 1750s. It is stronger, but it got a bit spooked by the tariff announcements of last week. The point is, the gold miners are making bucket loads of money, and as long as they don't start doing stupid things with that bucket loads of money, we as shareholders are going to get dividends and rewards. AngloGold Ashanti could conceivably pay $4 or $5 of dividend this year, and that's what, about 80 to 100 rand of rands of dividend on a share that, let's call it 1,000 rand. That's only 8 to 10% dividend yield. But that's not bad. And to be clear, AngloGold Ashanti hasn't been 1,000 rand before or for very long. A quick look at where we have been on that chart. I mean, AngloGold Ashanti was down at $130 during the pandemic. It was at $130 in 2022, and it started to rally in February of this year, going from 250. So I've got there's Goldfields there from 250 to 450. And if I quickly pull up the AngloGold Ashanti chart, we're going to see similar moves. I mean, back in December, AngloGold Ashanti was 400 and change. Now it's 950 and change. It was consolidating around 330 for much of last year before rallying. The gold miners they are printing cash. This is what you expect from them. I've said before, what are we watching for? Costs getting out of control, safety starting to slip. Those are two big red flags. And then also, I worry about deals. I worry about deals. And we've seen a couple. We've seen AngloGold buy into Egypt. We're seeing Harmony going for copper in Australia. Keep a close eye on that. Talking of a close eye, tariffs have arrived. They were kicking in 1 minute past midnight Washington time on Thursday, and South Africa is coming in. I actually chatted with Bruce Strong from Impact. I spoke about the impact of tariffs and potential sectors and stocks last week. I'm not going to revisit that, but I spoke to Bruce Strong. They had results on Monday. I spoke to him on my show Tuesday morning. Impact CEO. And he says, in the citrus, about 10% is going to the US. So there certainly is some pain there. It's citrus and table grapes. There certainly is some pain that's going to be felt there. Some farmers will have zero exposure. Some farmers will be very exposed. As a sector, it's 10%. It's not massive, But more importantly, it's also not zero. And as I said, it's going to, Impact is going to take some pain. It's a bit of pain in one of their divisions. Cobb Agri, Coal Group, as they now call themselves, they're going to take some pain because some farmers are just going to have less money because no one was buying their citrus, or perhaps less of their citrus. And then Friday was the Bureau of Labor Statistics data out of the US. Unemployment was 4.2 and some change. You'll hear some people say 4.3, but on roundings it's 4.2. And there were revisions. Now, the big story here is two big stories. The one is that the data was a little bit weak, and the second is that Trump then fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, the weird thing is Trump said that they had faked the revisions to make him look bad, although he keeps on saying to Jerome Powell that he must cut rates because the economy needs it, and those are two contradictory statements. Well, welcome to the next 3.5 years of our life, as Trump is the president of the USA. There's nothing much we can very much do about that. That is how Trump likes to play. Contradictions don't bother him in the least. But here's some perhaps important points. Let's first look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the head of the Bureau is a presidential appointee, a 4-year term, and they need to be confirmed by Senate. They are very much a technocrat. They are not involved in the actual doing of the numbers. They probably see them 2 or 3 days before the final polish. They get sent to the president the Thursday evening and then released on Friday morning Washington time. So the president undoubtedly spent all of Thursday night trying to get them changed and didn't like the fact that they weren't. The revisions happen. Now, the president says there was a giant revision in November, a negative revision of 800,000. That actually happened in August of last year. And the revisions are common currents. But contrary to what many are saying, actually, the revisions have been getting smaller over time. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has actually been getting better at these numbers. And how does the process work? So they initially get the number, and that's the headline number that comes first Friday of the month, and that is your first collection data. And it's about 70% of data is being collected. It is electronic, and companies need to log in and do it. But not all do. So they're then given a second and a third month, and that is the revisions. Because at the end of month one, which is the data that was released on Friday, first Friday of the month, there's not everything in yet. And then it is typically the smaller companies that there is a lag in terms of them getting the data in. Now, these are career people who are working at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The head, yes, political appointee. Everybody else, no, they are career people. They are absolutely doing their job. Are they fudging numbers? No, they're not. Come on. No, they are not fudging numbers. And those who say they are, well, I mean, you've got to bring more evidence then. Look, revisions are ugly. Revisions are ugly. They happen. And go look at the statistical data. The revisions have been getting better. In other words, the data is actually becoming more accurate. The problem is that you fire the head of the BLS, and now you create this precedent, in a sense, which basically says, well, can we trust further numbers? I mean, let's say that Trump gets the most independent, trustworthy person in there. There's going to be questions. And then a really good set of numbers come out, and people are going to say, doesn't matter how much we trust the person, we're going to say, but hang on, are these fudged for the president? Let's say a bad set of numbers come out. Is it going to be a case of, well, have these been maybe juiced for the president to look a little bit better? It just raises that question. Now, over time, this can fade away and we can start to trust the data again. But it does put a question mark against some very important data coming out of America. And if Trump continues like this, it's a mess. We've seen Greece tried it. I mean, they basically faked deficit numbers. And then when they got a new head of statistical agency who pointed this out, they prosecuted him. Argentina, in the 2000s and 2010s, just basically faked inflation, made it lower, and then people don't trust it. So when you don't trust data, the cost of debt goes up. Your currency weakens. China. I mean, we've had faking numbers to meet the mandates. I mean, a lot of folks will say we can't trust the China numbers. It is not good if we start to say, hey, we're not sure if we can trust the American numbers. There's a lot to say about Trump, not much of it good. Firing a head of a political appointee is absolute madness. Worldwide markets, powered by Standard Bank Global Markets, Retail, and Shyft. the global money app that puts travel, shopping, payments, and investments in the palm of your hand. Enjoy the cheapest forex rates anytime, anywhere. Shyft, powered by Standard Bank. Quickly before I go, I wanted to look at MP interests this week, but bigger stories took over. So I quickly pulled in the data on Bitcoin. Who owns crypto in our parliament? There are 400 parliamentarians. There are 90 people in the National Council of Provinces, 490 people. And in fact, there'll be more because the president is no longer a member of parliament, blah, blah, blah. Two people hold crypto. Mr. Andrew Dirk de Blok van Stecheling, I can't pronounce that, holds 0.1967 Bitcoin, about 30K. And Mr. Ashol Nick Shurapen, also DA, holds about 33,000. Two people hold a fractionally small amount of crypto. That's it. There's no other crypto that was declared. They're not passing laws on crypto. They're not going to be passing laws on crypto because they don't understand crypto, because no one holds crypto. We'll leave it there for this week. My name is Simon. As always, we'll be back again next week. Look after yourself, and if you can, look after somebody else as well. Cheers all.